You know? It's like the opposite, I guess, of Buddha's enlightenment. It's like the Homer Simpson, damn, I missed it again. And it's always that feeling that it's just out of reach. But a real mystic, a real would-be mystic, even that's not discouraging. Because even if you said, well, you may not ever find it, he'd go, well, it's beginning to look that way. But he got no choice. As close as he's been is more fun than he ever had in his life. No offense to sex and good food and all that. But up here, there's nothing even touches it for those that have got to have it. The description of calming the mind is not bad. If I was going to, and I'm using that because I would assume that based upon what I've said thus far would perhaps make more pictorial sense, allegorical sense than anything else I could readily come up with. It is an extension of the nervous system. To say it's calming the mind, if we had more time, or maybe you can do it yourself, you can understand, looking at it from a less literal level, how that could be, even though I point out that the mind will never be calmed. This thing right here, as it is now, no matter who you are, will never be calmed. But once you begin to see what's going on a little bit in you and in man, you understand that to say that enlightenment or a higher state of consciousness is a calming of that is a reasonable description. It's not true, but it's no worse than many more. I would put it to you more on the, remember there is no such spatial linearity, but it would be that you have moved up to another level above that. You know, moving up, I know that always sounds very superior and like, well, that'd be one of the things about being a more conscious and awake person, I'd be above it all. Right. Maybe you will end up actually being that brain. They're in the laboratory that just, you know, sends out waves. It is not a calming of the mind. How about this? It is a transcending, which they even use that. It is a going beyond that. But there is no manual for it. That doesn't mean that there's not people on this planet at any given time, a few people who know what it is, but there is no manual to tell somebody, all right, Istanbul's that way. Let's assume that they are downright serious, that they are as serious a mystic as you can find. And you go, it's that way. And they take off walking, that first step, if you knew what you were doing, you've done with this service. Which is the little joke about the guy saying, well, what should I do? If you know, should I stand here? Should I do this? And you go, no, not there. And he goes, okay, how about here? No. How about here? Because if you say what's over here, no matter what you do, and I repeat, I am not playing some sort of would-be Georgia version of a Zen monk. If you point over there and your mind goes, all right, I'll do that, it may be avocationally interesting for a while. It is not to discount anything you've ever done. If you've tried meditating, fasting, no matter what you've done, it's not to say it was wasted. You know, what were you going to do anyway? Watch movies all the time, you know, play pinball machine, so you had to do something. But anything that could be pointed to is still still a function of the mind. And to say, well, maybe it'll lead me to a point of calming the mind. That's like saying, well, if I keep walking, my feet will finally settle down. The enlightenment, a higher state of consciousness, in one sense, has nothing to do with the mind. That's a lie. It's an absolute bald-faced lie. In the same way that the mind, you can say, well, it's absolutely my intelligence. A man's mind is a distinct, separate operation from his kidneys. I know, except it's not. If you doubt it, shut down your kidneys. Cut them out and give them away and see how long that PhD in economics. There is no such thing as a brain up here by itself. I will point out again, there seems to be a certain kind of spatial injustice at work because there are certain head traumas, or I can show you how to do it with a ball-peen hammer and a little, that you can do a kind of frontal lobotomy to yourself, and hospitals are full of people who are physically still alive without this. You understand? So there is no such thing as this brain sitting up there in this bowl by itself, but there are bodies without brains. For anyone who ever cares to underestimate the power of the body. So the comparison I was trying to get you to see, that the mind, you cannot separate the mind from the body. It's simply an ad hoc description that I'm using. It's just a way to trying to get you to look in a certain way. But just as there's no distinction, none, no operational distinction that is suicidal if you tried to put it into practice, there is no distinction, there is no discreteness whatsoever between a man's brain and his anus, his stomach. In the same way, there's not really that kind of quantum move between enlightenment, or I'm saying now it's not a function of the mind, let's just call it another state of consciousness. It's not that there is an absolute unconnected space or jump between the ordinary workings of the mind and this other state. But this other state is not, I mean, the ordinary workings of the mind is not this state. That it is not, even though it sounds as though it can be a promising picture, that the enlightenment is a calming of the mind to where it reflects, that gets closer. But it's not a matter that you've got to calm the mind. The mind is not going to be calm. There's nothing wrong with your mind. There's nothing wrong with you from a mythical view. But understand, back to part of my other story, if someone does not agree with you, with your mind, that you're not as you should be, that I've got to do something, I want to do something, I'll take care of it. If there's some way that I can discover what's going on in life, if people can actually know the secret, if there have been people that have done it and can still do it, I want to do it. Okay, I know you do. Well, what should I do? They believe that they should be doing something. They believe that something is amiss in them. As long as you're operating on that basis, you're stuck in Paris. You can run around, you can apparently get from cab to cab, you can apparently get from one streetcar to another, you can even move from one part of town to another. You can take up new friends, you can read different books. There's a kind of focusing of attention. The collective mind thinks in what amounts to a cloudy manner. Collectively, all you got to see, the jokes that all over my little things, my dramatics, all of you laughed at, and I point out was not an attempt at sarcasm, much less critical irony of someone coming out of church or coming out of temple and someone trying to think philosophical, high thoughts, coming out of a great metaphysical lecture, and it's out in the parking lot they look down and somebody just backed into their car and give it a ding, and they just throw a fit. I know it sounds simple, it sounds, well, that's how people are, some people. No, that's how all people are. And they have to, as long as you believe that there's in some way a cure for that, I should not be like that. It's neither here nor there. But as long as that is the basis of what you attempt to do, you will never go anywhere. The enlightenment, the awakening of consciousness, is not a cure for any ill because you're not ill. Ordinary people are ill. And as long as you think you're ill, you're still ordinary. There's a way that you can focus. I'm about to stop. Since there was no beginning, there'll be no end to it. What it is known on this planet. There's always somebody around. It is not through some great effort. People seem to like this little commentary, this comment I've made several times. The idea of these great struggles of the Abrahams and Confuciuses and Laos and Buddhas and all that, do take note. We're all written after the fact. And part of the purpose of the so-called disciples and the followers of these great people was after they died, was to write their life and make it sound more interesting than it was. All the great trials, the tribulations, all that the Buddha went through, all that Jesus went through, right. I know it seems they have it in impressive looking books, but that was before they had inside edition and hard copy. It's trash journalism. That's why people have heroes. Well, that's why people, even mystics, have heroes. Ordinary people have heroes, and then mystics have heroes. And the would-be mystics thinks there's a difference. There is no difference, because the whole idea of a hero, especially the mystical, it gets worse, is the idea of some past hero is, you know why you like the idea? It's because he did all the work for you. But little weekend mystics can read books about poor old Moses, all he went through, or Jesus, the way he was mistreated, and just think, and you just want to cry. I understand it. I'm not just being silly. And you think, oh, how horrible. I mean, he's so misunderstood. People who know the secret of life, people that know what's going on, if I may use a technical vernacular, ain't never misunderstood because they don't say anything publicly. These ideas of a Jesus and a Buddha being, even the one that I said about him going through, you got to look at it as a myth. Your own attempt to get out of Paris, that he spent, whatever it was, 20 or 30 years attempting to do everything, damn near killing himself. If there was such a person as Buddha, which is all beside the point, that guy, that story was trash journalism, it was fiction, which is what all autobiography is. But that was part of the purpose after the fact, was to make that look very, I mean, what an interesting life. I mean, all the trials, And would-be mystics even reading and think, how come I couldn't have been blessed by being cursed that way? Speaking strictly now, allegorically, I'm just picking these figures, Jesus did not travel that far. Buddha didn't go all that far, those kind of people. They're no different. They were either born to it, the same as I said that anybody even now is, or they're not. Life is not furnishing challenges to some individual. Life is not furnishing information secret to some individual. The information, that people believe is secret information that would make one, cause one to become more conscious or enlightenment, it is in the actual very air that you're breathing. The data is right there. Now, I'm being somewhat charitable in that because it's already in you, but that sounds like, well, at least it's something external to me. And it is. The very things you don't need, if you ever find it out for yourself, you did not need some information that a yoga or a lama or some mystical teacher had somewhere. You have been breathing it in. It is point blank in front of you. Or to give you my creation story, if nobody's heard it. When life created everybody, individually, you had one shot. Momentarily, when life created you, it was actually when your intellect got fired up. You and life were like that. As though you're like a little assembly line, a Ken and Barbie doll, an Adam and Eve doll coming down. Life is creating them all. And it's like they're at quality control that you stop momentarily. Like a woman checking potatoes to see if the eggs are the right size. It's like you and life are right there, just momentarily. It just stops, just momentarily. And you had a split second. You were eyeball to eyeball, direct confrontation. You were enlightened before you could be enlightened. You were directly looking at life, and almost everybody goes, everybody see? Almost everyone blinks and looks away. You're supposed to. A few people don't. Another version of my same story is most people forget about it. Some people don't. They never know what it is for a long time. All they know is, God, I sure would like to go somewhere. And then when they become weekend would-be mystics, it's always a feeling that it's temporal, that we lost it, which is the curse of God in all religions and all myths, that we lost it. What I want to do is return back to a state when I was better. Give yourself a break. At the ordinary level, every human's as good as they're ever going to be. But it's the idea that, nah, we were better. We were in some better state, and we lost it. Yeah, you blinked. You started to think. You became human. Your mind got busy. A few people, individuals can do it. The idea that secret knowledge just shows the limited appeal of it. And so people learn to live with the irritation. And since this is not, it never has been a physical, there's no physical way to induce it. There is no direct intellectual way that somebody can point and say, well, go do this. Go and meditate. Try and picture the Russian alphabet upside down in your head, and to sit in a straight back chair on a bar stool for 2 hours a day, and with every breath try and picture the steppes of Europe. You can do something like that, but insofar as that being the secret, and that if you do that, even intellectually, that it will bring about this other state, is a canard. It is not true, and you should have already been through it. There is no direct way to say do that intellectually. You're either wired up that you have the potential, but you got to stop wasting your time to ever get anywhere. You have got to quit trying to nourish yourself off of any collective, the workings of man's collective mind. There is no information there. It is genetic, it's not hidden, it's not spiritual, it's not religious. It's in a sense you're pulling the future down into your own brain. It's not needed. If life wanted that to go on a widespread basis, I hate to tell you this, but life would make it happen. It does not. Everything's running at some sort of tempo. People would-be mystics are in a hurry. They're tired of marching at that same sane collective cadence. There is no collective way. There's no way that someone else can do it for you. There's no way that you can get together with other people equally in the dark and hold hands and create new sunshine. Yeah. The enlightenment, a kind of extreme focusing of attention out of this cloudy mist, is an individual activity, and only that. there are ways that can assist you. There are ways that, I won't say more, begin to sound like, God forbid, a sales pitch. Well, I shouldn't say God forbid, because anybody that had their fill of it, they can go, well, it's a good thing we left before we started selling the jams and the videos and the courses. Yeah, right. It's a good thing. I was going to go ahead and give you the free one, which is the one we got. Rather than me saying that there are ways that can be conducive to helping you move, I'll give you the free one. Is look around at everything that your mind thinks is part of the collective mind of man. That is, everything that's sane, that you think about it. You don't have to agree. Pick out any area, what it is that seems to involve you. Politics, religion, spiritual, whatever it is. If you're thinking about what life is thinking about, if you're thinking about what is contemporaneously important, or what may be, in your view, historically, spiritually important, if it's things you've already heard about, which means that man's collective mind's thought about it, then I'm going to give you this absolutely free. Discount it. Don't disagree with it. Quit thinking about it. And you can say, wait a minute, you got to tell me, should I agree with it or disagree with it? Right. You do not see that, to take their other description, to use theirs, as the ultimate calming of the mind? If all sane people, if life is thinking about a particular area, you can forget it. Just absolutely forget it. At least you've narrowed down that you don't have to wait for somebody who doesn't know anything to go, oh, go over here. Because it might take you a long time to go over there and find out that, well, that wasn't it. Just take it collectively. That everything that life, at the collective, ordinary, sane level, says, well, go over here, no matter where it is, and you think, wait a minute. If it was political, that, well, this is too conservative an approach, I am more of a liberal thinker. You're stuck on the same flypaper. You're stuck with the same waves on your mind. You can go, well, no, the waves, well, most people, they blow me to the left. But me, being the original, independent thinker I am, I begin to look at it another way. And you feel like, well, the waves wanted to run on me. My parents, spiritual, intellectual, social waves, used to run this way to the left. But now that I've been around a while and know something, I can think for myself. And so I, through some great intellectual effort, I now can blow the other way. Now, of course, anyone who would not call that progress, I don't know what kind of low-down intellectual slow thinker they are. It can still be done. Nobody can make you do it. Nobody can actually take you by the hand and shove you into the city limits of Istanbul. But it's not a matter of physical discipline. You got to be, as I said, you got to be physically sane to start with. But big deal. If you're not physically sane, that's it. Then you've got to be born with that kind of inescapable dissatisfaction. But rather than see it as a dissatisfaction, rather than seeing it that something is amiss, that you either misstepped or you're now suffering the traumas of your parents psychologically or some other way, and that you've got to get yourself back on course, forget it. It will not put you back on course. Wherever you are, you're on course. It can still be done. People know how to do it, a few people. If this was a democracy, I guess I would say, would you like for me to leave on a high note, a joke, a piece of encouragement? Or would you like for me to leave at a reasonable time?